Hi, Neil here from the Dirt Floor Workshop. Today's video is a continuation of thread cutting. Now, in the last video I showed you how to identify the thread. Now, hopefully you've all watched that video, so we can now go on. Next video is set the machine, and we're going to talk about the correct speed, the right gear ratio, engaging the lead screw and selecting the right tooling. But before I do that, I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea about how a lathe works. Now, a lathe, we'll draw the lathe here. And we'll draw a couple of legs. And on top of the lathe we've got a chuck, like so, and we hold the workpiece there like so. Now coming off that is a shaft which has got a gear on it which is used to drive that shaft. Now, down here we've got a lead screw which looks like this. And the lead screw is used for thread cutting. Now, in this case, the pitch of this lead screw is 6 mm. Now, what happens is this shaft is connected to this shaft with a gear. And when this turns one revolution, in this case, it will turn this one revolution, and anything that was connected to this shaft would move. So we'll draw the carriage here, or the apron, or whatever. And on top of that we have got the tool post, and we've got a tool there, and we've got a couple of half nuts. I'll draw a couple of half nuts down there, and they are attached to a lever. Now, if we engage the lever and lock the half nuts, when this turns it will move the carriage, and that will cut the tool. The tool will cut the thread. If this was if the ratio was 1 to 1, what would happen is one revolution of that would turn that one revolution, which would move it 6 mm, and you'd replicate that thread up here. If you wanted to cut a different thread, if we were to say put a gear here, now if this gear was half the size of this one, this would turn one revolution, that would only turn half a revolution, so it would only move in 3 mm, so you'd end up with a 3 mm pitch. So what you can see is that by varying this gear ratio, you can actually change the pitch. And that's how it was done in the old days, but now lathes come with a gearbox, and the gearbox is there, so this shaft goes through the gearbox, and this has got levers or dials or whatever, and that's what we're going to talk about today, how to set these gears to get the pitch that you want. Now let's go and have a look at the lathe. The first thing that you need to do is you need to set the speed, and that is this gear here will drive that. So because your reaction time is going to be fairly slow because you're new to this, we're going to pick the lowest speed there, and we're going to go around here and we're going to choose 40. We're going to choose 40 revs a minute, and we're going to set this dial here for cutting in. We're going to cut in. We're going to set that to that position. Now if we have a look down here, we've got a chart, and we've got threads per inch, and we've got metric thread pitch. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to choose 13 threads per inch, which is 1/2 inch UNC. Now if we have a look up here, we go 7 on that scale, and we come across here to B. So we've got B on this here. We take that down and we move that across. If you're having trouble to move that, you can just wriggle the lead screw after you've engaged the lead screw. You can wriggle that, and that will make it a little bit easier to engage that. And this one down up here, 7, position 7, we move that down here. That's position 7, we'll move that up there. So we've now got the correct gearing. The only other gears to take into account are these ones here. Now most of these ones here don't change a lot. You'll see here we've got 40, 127, 120 and 40. Over here, metric threads, 40, 127, 120, 40. So you can cut a lot of gears without changing. You can cut a lot of threads, sorry, without changing these gears. And these gears here are changed by taking this back cover off, and they're inside here. But for a lot of them, you won't have to change that. The lead screw is actually engaged with this lever here. That half nuts and that lever that I've drawn there is that actual lever there. When you move that down, the carriage is now locked. The only other thing to now talk about selecting the right tooling. You can actually grind a piece of tool steel to 60 degrees or 55 degrees. If you're cutting a Whitworth thread, it's a 55 degrees. If it's most metric threads and most threads per inch is 60 degrees. Of course, you can grind special shaped threads. If you're cutting a thread like that, which is an Acme thread, you can grind that shape with a piece of tool steel. But that takes a little bit of skill, and I wouldn't advise you, if you're just learning, I wouldn't advise you to try and grind a piece of tool steel. What I'd advise you to do would be to buy a thread cutting tool like this one, and buy an insert. This is a 60 degree partial profile. There are full profile inserts which are the exact depth of the thread, so you can just cut them in until you get the full depth. But this is a partial profile which will cut a number of different threads, and that's what I would suggest that you get when you start off. I think that sort of covers some of the basic stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.